What's up guys, YST here and welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video. I hope everyone's having an amazing day. Today we're going to be doing a video that I've been meaning to do for the longest time ever, and it's going to be my top 20 rare champions for the Demon Lord Clan Boss. Now you might be asking yourself, why would I max up a rare over an epic or a legendary champion? Is there actually any meaning to do so? Are they as powerful? Well, actually, a lot of them fulfill some niche roles that can enable the compositions that include those legendary or those epic champions, or simply they're just phenomenal in the ways that they can provide DPS, turn meter fills, increase defense, or decrease attack, and just playing a vital role for your team when you're grinding through progression, and some of them carrying all the way up until the end game, which we will discuss all of the variations. So when you first come into the game, of course, you're going to be hitting the easy clan boss, you'll be pushing into the normal, then the hard, or whatever that may be. And you might just be looking for these champions that maybe place a decreased attack or place an increased defense. It might not even be the bigger variation, but it's enough for you to strive for those top chests until you get to the later stages, which you can substitute them with some better options down the line as you gather some champions from fusions or shards or whatever that may be. If that does sound exciting, be sure to hit that like, subscribe button, maybe grab yourself some popcorn because it will be a bit of a longer video. And let's get straight into it with the first champion that I feel has a lot of value in this game. Also in the comment section below, guys, if I do miss out any of your favorites or ones that you feel should be highlighted that I may have just overlooked here, definitely let me know in the comment section below. I'll be keeping my eyes peeled and I'll be giving them a test myself as well to see their true values. So the first one is going to be Doomscreech from the Undead Hordes faction, and I actually made a bunch of compositions utilizing this champion. What it comes down to, right, is not only a 30% turn meter fill on a 3-turn cooldown, which can enable some teams to pair with potentially Seeker, which I've done in the past, to have like a double turn meter strategy, but also places the big version of increased defense in the same skill on all allies for 2 turns. Now, I'm pretty sure that many of you guys watching this video can resonate with a bunch of rares that have the 30% increased defense, and being able to whop out the big variation with the big turn meter fill in the same skill can enable a bunch of compositions. And also another reason why I love using Doomscreech in some teams is you can actually amplify the damage of your defensive based damage dealers instead of just your attack base with like an increased attack buff. So in those unkillable teams can definitely have value to slot into certain comps. The rest of his kit is kind of underwhelming in the sense of decreased accuracy, although it is the big variation, just a smaller chance to place it. And then a shield buff equal to 30% of this champion's max HP. It's only on himself though, so I kind of locked this off personally. And then I only utilized this skill here just to make the speed tunes. So I'm a big fan of Doomscreech and also can be carried into secret rooms, Doom Tower battles, or even for PvP as well to get the turn meter boost in the arena with a base speed of 95, which isn't the best, granted, but has a lot of value for what he does provide here. Next champion is going to be in the Dwarves faction and he goes by the name of a Bulwark. I'm pretty sure many of you guys know about this one here. He's from the Void Affinity, and I remember when I first came into this game, he was one of the champions that I just really wanted, and when I got my hands on him, he was actually the reason why I reached Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss with a 4-key for the first ever time. What it comes down to is, punishing defense's passive when he's attacked will have a 30% chance of extending the duration of all debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn. Now, whether that be a decreased attack, a decreased defense, a weaken, like because it's extending the duration of all debuffs, theoretically makes this like a budget Viziering effect, but it's based on being hit instead of hitting himself. Now you will have a bit more value from this from Affinity Clan Boss when you're getting hit 4 times instead of once on the Void, and you will definitely see a better growth over time for the debuffs that you see stacked on your opponent or the Clan Boss. Outside of this, not a useless kit as well. We got a burn, 100% chance, and also the low variation of weaken and a defensive aura by 17%, making him a very good aura champion if you don't have other ones to fulfill this role. So overall, very strong champion for progression, and he can actually be the champion that pushes you to Ultra Nightmare for the first time, depending on the composition around him. And that's kind of the theme with a bunch of these champions. They're not just like solo kings, like you need 5 champions in the clan boss, right? As long as you've got the right support and fundamentals around these champs is where you're going to see the optimal value. So the next one is going to be Bogwalker from the Lizardman faction. And he actually surprised me, man. Like, where is he? Here we go. Now, aesthetic-wise, looks pretty cool. I like the way he looks. But it all comes down to this A1. Attacks one enemy, has a, what was that, a 50% chance of placing the big decrease attack for 2 turns. Now, there is some champions that potentially place it for 1 turn, and some of them that have the lower variation being the 25% decrease attack. But being able to place this for 2 turns, on a relatively good chance by the way, think about pairing this with counterattack, it's all you're going to need if that's what you're after in terms of this debuff. We've also got an increased defense on all allies and attacks in the same skill for your War Master procs. And although it's the lower variation, once again, it's still an increased defense that can add to your sustainability over time on the correct cooldown of a 3 turn, making this incredibly easy to tune. So decreased attack, increased defense, a bit of reflect damage as well, which is not what we're after, but it's just basically a fundamental skill set to help you get through some of the early stages of the clan boss. Next up is going to be in the Dwarves faction once again, and it's going to be Dilgol. Where's Dilgol? There he is. Another Void Affinity champion. He's looking to plunder the enemies, right? And it all comes down to an A1 that has a decreased speed. We cannot manipulate the speed of the boss itself, so basically no use coming out of this apart from damage. But he's got a A2 that places a decreased accuracy. Once again, probably not the best value. But on this A3 skill, attacks one enemy 3 times and has a, what is that, a 55 or 65% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense for 2 turns on a 4 turn cooldown. Now, of course, we'd like this to be on a 3 turn, so it's more consistent. 4 turn isn't like what we're after here. But just having a chance to place a big version of decreased defense, very consistently by the way, can actually be very beneficial, right? It's one of the debuffs that you need to amplify your damage over time for your raw damage and your War Master or Giant Slayer procs. So being able to utilize this for a rare, I was actually pretty impressed. I thought that's really good, man. Maybe potentially build him in a reflex set so you can actually cycle your skill cooldowns more efficiently. Therefore, more drop defenses will be placing, so you don't have to rely on that 4 turn cooldown. So I think for that reason alone, he definitely makes my top 20 list here. And they're not in any kind of order, guys. It's just, you know, top 20, however you want to think of it, right? Next one is obviously a champion that many people are aware of, and I've seen her utilizing so many teams, like you see in the clan boss section of my clan. It's going to be Frozen Banshee. Now, I'm actually not a big, huge user of Frozen Banshee. I do know her value. It comes down to the Frost Blight, which can place a poison sensitivity, which coincides with the A1 that attacks one enemy 2 times, with each hit having a chance of placing a big version of the poison debuff for targets under poison sensitivity. So you are going to have to open up with this and then lead into this one as well. And I feel like she pairs very well for unkillable style teams or kind of counter-attack / ally attack teams as well, just to make sure that you can get as much poisons as you can out before the poison sensitivity wears off on that 3 turn cooldown. Maybe pairing this with a Master Hexer to extend the value could be a very good idea, or a debuff extender. But definitely stands as one of the best champions in the game for clan boss DPS for a rare champion. Actually sitting right next to her, we've got the Gravechill Killer. She actually wasn't on my official list, but I can see the value that she can provide, maybe even pairing with Frozen Banshee here. It basically comes down to is, each has a chance of placing a 2.5% poison debuff, which is the lower variation. Not really looking for those. But she does place the big version instead while the target is under a poison sensitivity. So if you're pairing her with the Frozen Banshee or other champions that can fulfill that role for you, you're going to be able to place that big variation once again with an each hit placement, right? Without any buff value. So it's just going to be happening. Granted, you've got the accuracy thresholds. So really nice A3. We've also got a small version of decreased defense, but once again, the big version of decreased defense if the target is under a poison, which you're probably going to have, right? If you're building this whole composition around poisons. So big version drop defense 3 turn cooldown. We've got big versions of poisons if they're under sensitivity. Granted, she doesn't place it herself. You just need other champions to do that for you. And then also another chance of placing a poison on the A1 skill as well. So overall, this is a phenomenal champion, right? And you can imagine her in like an unkillable style setting paired with a sensitivity champion that she can really put in the work for your team and get the damage that you need, right, over time. So just heading out here, we're going to be going into the Knights Revenant next. And this champion was actually a huge help on my free-to-play, and it's going to be Coffin Smasher. Now, Coffin Smasher is a phenomenal decrease attack option, as it's the big variation of 50%, and it's each hit placement being at a 35% chance per hit, 40% chance with the sniper masteries, but it's attacking 3 times, so you can just imagine how consistent this can be over the course of a battle. He also has a HP burn and also decreases the damage enemies inflict with AoE attacks by 5%. And I'm pretty sure many of you guys know what the clan boss is going to be doing to us, right? We're going to be getting those AoE slams. He's just reducing that damage for us, therefore potentially making some of your team survive where they might not have before using him, right? So overall, big fan of Coffin Smasher, simple but effective. One that I always look for when I'm progressing on like a free-to-play account or just trying to get to like Brutal or Nightmare for the first ever time. So let's just head it into the High Elves faction for this next one. Can any of you guys guess? Guess before I say it? There's probably a few in here that you can guess. Well, it's actually going to be the Void Rare in a Reliquary Tender. Now, this champion is phenomenal. Simple reason being is, if you max her up for Demon Lord early game and you might not have the value for her anymore in the late game, or she's still going to have tremendous value just for as a cleanser champion for like the Nether Spider or Arena Progression, you name it. She's just a very cool one to have on your account, even for like secret rooms, right? Really, really good. The Tender's Watch, this is basically what it all comes down to, with removing all debuffs from all allies, placing a continuous heal on a 3-turn cooldown. So whether that be taking off the decreased speed debuff or taking off the stun debuff, right? If you can tune this correctly, you're going to have yourself in the best situation possible to keep your run consistent and not lose your cooldowns by having the stuns on your champions. So a very, very cool A2, which of course can be substituted with better options down the line, such as Mithrala Lifebane or whatever that may be. We've also got a small version of decreased attack, so if you've got another decreased attack option that might not be 100% and you just want another form of that in the team, she can basically come in with this default, help that out for you, and revive as well if a champion seems to die, and just to clutch a bit of extra damage, potentially pushing you to that 2-to-1 key on like the lower difficulties, right? So, a really good champion of Reliquary Tender here. Now, this next one, like, I wasn't thinking about putting her in, well, she is in the list for a simple reason. She's farmable, she is good, she can fulfill roles such as Godseeker, Neri, and Sandlash Survivor, but there was like a lot of discrepancies in the way that she works against Spirit Affinity. And I'm not sure if anyone has seen this video that I created back in the day, or I say back in the day, but about a year ago now. Where basically it was like determining the turns that the clan boss would take, where he would open up with decreased speed instead of like the traditional double slam. And it was actually a big thing at the time. And Raid actually came back to us and said that specific champions or specific tunes or something can determine the turns that a clan boss takes, which I've not actually seen in any other team since, but simply putting Valerie in decreased speed compositions from the Spirit Affinity was actually determining the turns that a clan boss takes, so I've not used her since. But outside of that, still a phenomenal champion on paper, even for like the other affinities, and maybe even in Spirit, maybe just not the team that I was using. But increases the durations of all buffs and all allies by 1 turn, and also decreases the duration of all debuffs and all allies by 1 turn, and then will place a 25% increased attack on all allies for 2 turns. Now this is phenomenal, right? Just for a comparison, guys, we're going to head into Godseeker Neri from the Sacred Orders faction, and it's the exact same skill. Decreases the duration of all buffs by 1 turn and increases by 1 turn, but she has a heal mechanic as well, whereas what's her name, Valerie, has an increased attack. So in terms of A2 skills, she kind of sits up there, right, in terms of debuff extenders, or buff extenders, sorry, to keep you affinity friendly, or just to extend your increased defense, or whatever that may be, over the course of a battle, especially in like those 2-to-1 teams. So very valuable if you don't have the luxury of another extender. The rest of the kit, underwhelming, bit of a shield, A1 that does nothing. It's all down to this skill just to enable the teams that you can substitute over time. So next one is going to be Heiress from the High Elves faction. This is probably the one that you guys thought it would be when I went to Reliquary Tender. And Heiress is phenomenal. Like, I actually use Heiress in my clan boss team up until today for the Demiffer composition. And she's very unique in a way that she can remove a random debuff from all allies, keeping you affinity friendly, but also has a 100% chance of placing an increased speed buff in the same skill. So you're enabling those 2-to-1 teams, you're also removing the debuffs from allies, keeping you affinity friendly, taking off that stun. It's a phenomenal kit, right? Like, for a rare champion, this is probably one of the best in the game. Also counterattacks the attacker when an ally is attacked. So every single turn, just adding to that War Master procs over time. And she actually can deal a decent amount of damage here. She can grant an extra turn if the target is killed. Obviously, you can't kill the clan boss. So basically, just damage here. But the main thing is just going to be this A2 with exhaustion. A phenomenal kit. Phenomenal. Next up here is going to be Diobolist for a very similar reason from the Demon Spawn faction. And I've actually made some teams with, which one was it? The Underpriest Brogni to Roggy the Frog for players that don't have the luxury of a Lydia the Death Siren. And she can be farmed. Everyone's probably got this champion from doing 12-3 of the Brutal campaign. She has got a base speed of 110, which is why she makes the list. You can reach those speed thresholds without hardly breaking the sweat, right? But attacks all enemies, places a 30% increased speed buff, not the lower variation, on all allies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. And this is going to enable, like, if all you need in your team and the missing piece of the puzzle is an increased speed buff, there is no reason not to potentially use a champion like this until you get a better option, and still carries a lot of value through those secret rooms or the faction wars because she does attack all enemies. So since I built her, I've now got her in a stun set. So when I'm facing like secret rooms or the faction wars, if I need to use her, she can have a chance of CCing the waves and amplifying the speed of our champions. She also has a kind of budget Deacon Armstrong Lysandra effect on this A3, where she can fill the turn meters of all allies by 15% and also decrease the turn meters of all enemies by 15%. And because her base speed is so fast, you can actually open up with this, maybe have a speed aura and her to just cut in. So you're decreasing theirs in arena, filling your own. You can come with increased speed. Asleep on A1 as well on a low chance. This is a very good rare that everybody can get right from the campaign, so I'm a big fan of Diobolist. And then this next champion here is going to be from the Undead Hordes faction. And the only reason he's part of the list is because he's a part of the World Record Clan Boss team, right? With like billions of damage or whatever it is. And it all comes down to this A1 skill that inflicts additional damage if this champion is under a shield buff and the damage is equal to 30% of the value of the shield. So in those Affinity comps, you're extending the value of like an Underpriest Brogni, Chris the Ageless, you name it, extending those buffs, and before you know it, he's going to be dealing a bunch of damage. So he makes the list for that niche value. He was actually reacting in the same way with the new Fusion champion since they nerfed his A1, so the value isn't there as much as it was in the test server, but still a phenomenal champion for those specific teams. But outside of that, I don't know if it's a champion that I would be investing in personally, but for that simple reason being, he has to make the list, right? So heading into my favorite faction in the game, we've got Odachi. And Odachi actually was a really surprising one for me when he first came out. And basically comes down to a block debuffs on all allies for 1 turn, and also places a low variation of increased defense in the same skill for 2 turns. Now, simple, if we just compare here with a Grizzled Diol, increased defense on all allies for 2 turns, block debuffs on all allies for 1 turn, but it's just a bigger variation. So he has got the exact same skill on the exact same cooldown, just a lower variation of increased defense for a rare champion. And I know that a lot of people speak about Grizzled Diol as being a phenomenal epic champion for the clan boss. So if you speak about him as a great champion, you got to speak about Odachi, right? Having the exact same kit, but just basically the lower variation for progression here. We've also got a shield buff on this champion, equal to 20% of their max HP whilst attacking in the same skill. I think it would put him on a better caliber if it was a shield on all allies for protection, but it is what it is. And then also a provoke on the A1 as well, maybe, if you want to carry this into the Magma Dragon. So, overall, is he the best champion in the game? No. Can he fulfill roles for you to keep you potentially, well, to tank up the stun for like the block debuffs, or extend it with like a Godseeker Canary or Valerie and, you know, cover the bases for AoE 2 and a stun? Absolutely, to become affinity friendly, right? So, yeah, really cool champion here. Here we got Marked from the Barbarians faction. I'm actually doing very well with the factions today. So Marked is one that I actually built for my free-to-play account, and it was actually out of choice, not for a meme. Well, can I say that? I guess it came down to because I didn't have any other options, and I did replace her, but she did fulfill the role that I needed up until that point, which is what this whole video is about, right? So Marked, block debuffs on all allies for 1 turn, and also a 60% increased defense on all allies for 2 turns. So literally the same skill as the Grizzled Diol, like we mentioned before, in terms of that skill there. with the big variation. So coming just above Odachi in the skill. Decreased accuracy, a bit of decreased defense on the A1 being the lower variation, but still a great chance to do so. Simple, effective kit, great for progression. I'm a huge fan of Marked, personally. Next up here, we got Seducer from the, I said that I'm good at factions. Undead Hordes? Seducer, please be in here. There we go. Now, I've never been a huge fan of Seducer personally, but I know that he can have some value for players out there. And once again, increased defense, but the block debuffs is for 2 turns, which I like him a lot for this, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown, meaning 4-to-3 ratios is something that's going to have to come into effect. And we've also got a decreased attack, but the low variation here, but also attacks all enemies in the same skill for those War Master procs, and a sleep on the A1, and also an ally protection buff on all allies for 2 turns, and also places a block damage on this champion, only when Temptress is on the same team. So I guess we're going to have to speak about Temptress, right? Where is Temptress from? Oh, no, she's in the same faction. Thank God. I don't have to go anywhere. So Temptress, the problem is she doesn't really do anything for the team. There is a leech, right? Allows you to heal by 18% of the damage inflicted. Attacks 4 times at random. Going to be great for Giant Slayer procs. So maybe I'm sleeping on Temptress. Let me know, guys, in the comment section below if you've tried this champion as a DPS before. I'm actually very anxious to try this now. A chance of stealing buffs, waste of space here, but the leech, the increased attack, the increased crit rate, granting an extra turn, could be pretty hard to speed tune, to be fair. It's a hard one, but for progression, I do see the value because you get increased defense, block debuffs, ally protection, block damage, decreased attack, and leech from Temptress. Could be a nice little combo there for progression, right? Could be pretty decent. I might try that one day, you know. I'll have to go into the test server and try out that combo now. Could be pretty fun. Next up is going to be Hellborn Sprite, how do you say his name, for the same reason as the Corpulant Cadaver. She basically fits into those teams where it increases the duration of all ally buffs, but places the increased crit rate in the same kits. She also has a heal reduction, waste of space, and a low variation of weaken. But overall, fits into some niche teams where you may need this for your team, right? I've never been a big fan personally, but I do see the value where she comes into specific comps here. Treeshield Knott is a new release into the game. It was actually a part of a fusion. The most recent one, actually, I believe, from the Newt, right? Is it from Newt? I believe so. But basically, has a heal all allies by 15% of their max HP. Increased defense on all allies as well, being the low variation. We've got a small version of decreased attack on the A1. We've got a revival of 2 random allies and a shield as well. And a speed and faction wars crypts. So if you are progressing and you want to do faction wars, he's actually a champion that I look to actually use for my main faction wars teams if I manage to pull one, which I actually did yesterday for my main account. So a lot of value for secret rooms, faction wars, and also for progression in the clan boss. Pretty good value here, right? Next up here, we've got Myrimidon. I believe it's from... Myrimidon from... I don't want to mess this video up. Bannerlords? Yes, we got it. We got it. So it basically comes down to a 4-turn cooldown, a big version of ally protection on all allies. Very, very strong. One of the best strong forms of damage mitigation in this game, whilst also placing a continuous heal on this champion for 2 turns. So protecting everybody else, healing himself, can't really fault this skill here. We've also got a decreased attack on the A2, low chance again, and then a provoke on the A1 and a defense in dungeons. So it all comes down to if you need an ally protector, you don't have other options, you really want that for your team, he can fulfill this role on a 4-turn cooldown for your compositions here. We're leading down into the last 2, so we've got the Dark Elves next, and it's going to be Painkeeper. Now, Painkeeper is a part of so many like man-eater teams and unkillable comps where she basically uses the combat tactics to decrease the cooldowns of all ally skills by 1 turn on that 6, 5, or 4-turn cooldown here. And fun fact, I've actually never ranked up a Painkeeper over the 4 years that I've been playing this game. You guys, come at me in the comments. I want it. Tell me, max up a Painkeeper YST, you need one in your life. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. She also heals all allies by 15% of this champion's max HP and a 10-meter field that can be tuned for the Demon Lord Clan Boss. So overall, 1000% makes the list for the top 20 rare champions in the game for the Demon Lord. Do you know why we're here? She never actually made my list, but if you are building a cold heart for spiders, you're lucky enough to get her early game, she could have some value for you, right? If you've got about... Because if you place the heal reduction, there's a chance of placing a poison, a bit of max HP skills. Could be pretty good for the Demon Lord early game, I'd say. Last but not least for my list is going to be Loneblade Riab, who's actually a new introduction to Raid. Actually came out same time as Treeshield Knott, correct me if I'm wrong. But it actually surprised me with this A2. So on a 3-turn cooldown, increased crit rate on himself, pretty decent before attacking. But also the first hit has a 75% chance of placing the small version of decreased defense. The second it has a 75% chance of placing a small version of the weaken. So it's kind of like a budget Ruz and Skullhide in a sense, right? Drop defense and weaken, single target. If that's what you need for your team, you don't have other champions to fulfill this role. Could be a really good one to throw into the mix here, right? I was actually pretty surprised by the capability of Loneblade Riab here. So yeah, I guess that's going to be all for today's video, guys. If you did enjoy it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And for anybody that did just skip until the end of the video and didn't pay note to the intro, I'm not enticing my viewers to go out and max out 1,000 rares and they're going to drastically change your teams overnight and you're going to be wonking Ultra Nightmare. That's not what this video was about. It was basically about for players that's progressing and some kind of niche areas as well for the late game. We spoke about Bulwark, Frozen Banshee and Heiress. These are a part of amazing compositions that are Ultra Nightmare worthy. But back to what I was saying, like, you might not have the legendary skill terms, the epic skill terms, or the epic or legendary champions, and you might just be looking for a champion to fulfill a role until you get these higher caliber of champions, and somebody just to invest rare skill terms, maybe leave them at rank 50 or even rank 60 if you want to use them elsewhere, and just to play that niche for you until you get the better champions down the line. And hopefully we managed to do a good job in breaking down all of those and the ways that I'll be utilizing them in teams if I was progressing in this game. Have an amazing rest of your day, guys. Good luck on the rest of your fusion for anybody that's watching it as the fusion's going on. And I'll catch you guys in a video soon.